I got the TCI Turbo 400 is in there, along with the converter. The converter is 2400 stall converter. That's what they suggested. I told them everything about my truck. You know, I needed a shifter linkage since I went back to using the column shifter. So I ended up ordering this one from Speedway Motors. All the ones that I was seeing were aluminum rod. I can't weld aluminum, so I wanted a steel one. This is the one that I found that's all steel. So I wanted a steel one just in case I needed to cut the rod and weld it with a rod sleeve to make it longer if I needed to, because I have a body lift and because the motor's been set back. But I didn't have to do that. Uh, that's what it looks like. I ended up doing one bend on it. It comes with a pivot end on each end of it, but I ended up doing one little bend to kind of make it in line. And then the other thing that I did was my brother sent me a stock linkage for a Turbo 400 since I didn't have one. And I have that bolted to the transmission. And I end up welding this together like that to make it so that this is kind of a little bit more in line. I think my motor being set back is what's really throwing it off. But on the welded together like that, I did the one little bend in it. It's a pretty nice piece. I mean, it's all steel, so if you need to cut and weld, you can weld it. The instructions say to mount that arm at 9 o'clock, so that's how I have the arm mounted. But pushing that away from the transmission, I mean, it's almost 2 inches farther away, so it kind of helps that pivot point right there. And then I guess a couple of little tweaks, but for the most part, once I added that bend, it kind of really cleaned up how this comes together. So I think it's definitely going to work like that. And then as you shift down, that should still stay the same. So I don't think that'll be an issue. But the shifter linkage, I think it was like $55 or $60 shipped. I mean, it's pretty cheap. At least it's all steel. That I can weld together if I need to. At least it works out because now I need to weld it down there. I don't know if the aluminum ones are all aluminum or not, but that's the shift linkage that I got for my truck. Putting the Turbo 400 and transfer case in together, that was as much of a nightmare as I figured it would be. I mean, it was a good few hour project, but at least it's all in there. It even comes with a chrome oil pan. I have the deep oil pan still. Trying to decide if I want to put it on or not. But at least it's all in there. The transmission comes with little short cooler lines. Then you would hook up your rubber lines to it. They didn't fit very well, so I ended up making transmission lines out of brake line. I also made the vacuum is out of brake line also. So it's rubber down here. It runs up to the top of the motor along the intake and it curves over to the carburetor. And it's a rubber line from that to the carburetor. The fill tube or dipstick is also from TCI. I took a little bit of tweaks at the tab for bolting it to the transmission, but it's a pretty nice piece. It went in there, came with the grommet for mounting it in the transmission. But the transmission cooler lines they're 5/16, so inside diameter of a 3/8 hose. I left the flare on there. You can see how it bubbles out the hose. I just pushed the hose up and over it and ran 2 hose clamps at each junction point. So they run along the frame. I didn't take the nuts off, I just left them on there. They're secured to the frame, come up. And they run into my cooler. I have two coolers on the front of it. They're connected together, so it runs, loops through one, loops through the other one, then comes back and does the return on it. But I tried making the trans cooler lines out of one piece. It was just too many bends and it was looking like garbage, so it's 2-piece or 4 pieces if you count 2 lines. But that's how it looks. It's pretty decent looking. I've done it before like that and never had a leak. So I got coolant bottle and washer bottle from LMC, so working on that. Inner fenders in over here, so just kind of working my way across this, getting all the little stuff done on it. Just trying to get to the point where it's just the axles that need to be done. I have all my measurements to have the Tom Woods drive shafts made. I'm gonna get replacement yokes for it. These are the strap style. I'm gonna switch over to the U-bolt style yokes. You can see on the transfer case one, they've already broken the bolts and stripped the head on the other one. So I'm gonna get rid of that, and that's gonna be a U-bolt style also. Replace the output seals on the transfer case for the front shaft and the rear shaft also. I got the gasket kit for the MP205 from Off-Road Design. They gave me the gasket for the transfer case to the transmission. I mean, it's coming along, it's getting there. It's a lot of little small stuff trying to do on a 2-day off weekend every weekend, but it's slow progress. But I have the measurements. The rear drive shaft, I think it's like 23 degrees. The front drive shaft is 26.5 degrees. So I already talked to Tom Woods' shop once and told him kind of what I was looking at, and they said it really wouldn't be an issue with them. So I went ahead and got all the measurements for it. But that's the update on it. Like I said, it's slow progress. There's only so much you can do in a little bit of time. But there's a fill dipstick for the transmission. That's it. That's all I got.